US and Israel-Iran war. Hormuz closure affects inflation economics. The day prices suddenly rise. Imagine waking up one morning and noticing something strange. The price of fuel has suddenly jumped. The cost of groceries feels higher than usual. Shipping companies are raising their prices. News channels are talking about markets reacting across the world. At first, it feels confusing. Nothing around you has changed. Your city looks the same. Your daily routine is the same. Yet somehow, everything seems to be getting more expensive. Then you hear the news. A war has escalated between Iran and Israel. For many people, this sounds like a distant conflict happening far away in the Middle East. It may seem like something that belongs in international news, not something that could affect your daily life. But the reality is very different. In today's world, a conflict between two countries can send shockwaves across the entire global economy. Energy markets react. Shipping routes become risky. Investors panic. Governments begin preparing for possible shortages. And when these systems start reacting, prices begin to move. Fuel becomes more expensive. Transportation costs increase. Businesses start paying more to move products from one place to another. Those costs don't stay with companies for long. Eventually, they reach the people buying the products. So while the war may be happening thousands of miles away, the economic effects can slowly make their way into everyday life. Sometimes the first sign of a global conflict is not seen on the battlefield. It is seen on the price tag. The hidden link between war and your wallet. When people hear about a war between countries like Iran and Israel, most assume it is a political or military issue that affects only that region. It feels far away, something happening on another continent, something that will appear on the news but not in everyday life. But the truth is very different. In today's world, almost every economy is connected to every other economy. Countries trade energy, food, technology, and raw materials with each other every single day. Ships move across oceans carrying goods from one side of the world to the other. Trucks move products across countries. Factories depend on resources that may come from thousands of miles away. This means when a major conflict begins in a strategically important region, the effects do not stay local. They spread. A war can interrupt shipping routes. It can disrupt the flow of resources. It can create fear in global markets. And sometimes, even the possibility of disruption is enough to change how businesses and governments behave. Companies start preparing for shortages. Investors react to uncertainty. Governments begin worrying about energy security. Slowly, quietly, the gears of the global economy start shifting. What seems like a distant conflict begins to push costs higher across industries. Transportation becomes more expensive. Production becomes more expensive. Moving goods across the world becomes more expensive. And when businesses face higher costs, those costs eventually reach the people buying the products. In other words, the consequences of war do not stop at the battlefield. They travel through trade routes, energy markets, and supply chains until they arrive in the most unexpected place: your daily expenses. The oil factor. Why energy markets panic first when a war begins in the Middle East. The first thing that global markets watch is oil. This is because oil is one of the most important resources in the modern world. It powers cars, trucks, ships, and airplanes. It runs factories and helps produce electricity in many countries. Even many everyday products are made using materials connected to oil. In simple terms, oil keeps the global economy moving. The Middle East is one of the biggest oil-producing regions on the planet. Several countries in this region export millions of barrels of oil every day to the rest of the world. Countries in Asia, Europe, and many other parts of the world depend on this oil to keep their industries and transportation running. So when a conflict starts between powerful countries in this region, global energy markets become nervous. Traders and governments start asking a serious question: will the supply of oil be affected? Even if the war has not yet disrupted oil production, the fear alone can push prices higher. Markets react quickly because energy shortages can create major economic problems. Oil companies, shipping companies, and investors begin preparing for the worst. They expect possible disruptions in supply. They worry about attacks near oil facilities or shipping routes. As a result, the price of oil begins to rise. And when oil prices rise, the impact does not stay inside the energy industry. It spreads across the entire economy. Because once fuel becomes more expensive, everything that depends on fuel becomes more expensive too. The dangerous choke point. There is one place in the world that makes this situation even more serious. It is called the Strait of Hormuz. This is a narrow water passage located between the Persian Gulf and the open ocean. Even though it is small compared to the vast oceans around it, it plays a huge role in the global economy. Every day, a massive amount of the world's oil travels through this narrow route on large oil tankers. Countries in the Middle East send their oil through this passage to reach markets in Asia, Europe, and other parts of the world. In fact, around one-fifth of the world's oil supply moves through this single route. That means the global economy depends heavily on this small stretch of water. Now imagine what happens when a war breaks out in the region around it. Shipping companies become cautious. Oil tankers may delay their routes. Insurance costs for ships increase. Some companies may even avoid the area completely because of security risks. Even if the passage is not fully blocked, the fear of danger can slow down the movement of oil. And when the flow of oil slows down, the global supply becomes tighter. When supply becomes tighter and demand stays the same, prices start to rise. This is why the Strait of Hormuz is often called one of the most important and sensitive economic chokepoints in the world. If something disrupts this narrow passage, the impact can be felt in energy markets across the entire planet. The moment the world holds its breath. Now imagine the moment when tensions in the region start affecting the main shipping routes. Oil tankers that normally move freely through the region suddenly face uncertainty. Shipping companies begin to worry about safety. Insurance costs for ships passing through the area rise sharply. Some companies even decide to delay their journeys until the situation becomes clearer. For the global energy market, this is a dangerous moment. Millions of barrels of oil move across the oceans every day to power industries, transportation, and homes around the world. But when ships slow down or avoid certain routes, the flow of oil begins to slow as well. Even if the route is not completely blocked, the fear of danger can reduce the number of tankers willing to pass through. And when the flow of oil slows down, markets react immediately. Oil traders begin buying and selling quickly, trying to predict what will happen next. Governments start paying close attention to their energy reserves. Businesses begin preparing for higher fuel costs. This is the moment when the world economy holds its breath, because everyone understands one simple fact. If the supply of oil becomes uncertain, prices will rise. And when oil prices rise, the economic shock begins to spread across the world. The oil price shock. Once oil prices start rising, the effects move very quickly through the global economy. Oil is not just another product that people buy. It is the fuel that powers transportation, industry, and trade. When its price goes up, the cost of running many systems also goes up. The first impact is seen in transportation. Trucks that move goods across countries need diesel. Ships that carry products across oceans burn large amounts of fuel. Airplanes transporting cargo also rely heavily on jet fuel. When oil becomes expensive, the cost of operating these vehicles increases immediately. Companies that depend on transportation begin paying more to move their products. Then factories begin to feel the pressure. Many manufacturing processes require energy. Machines run on electricity, and in many countries electricity is generated using oil or other fuels connected to the energy market. When energy prices rise, production becomes more expensive. Businesses are then faced with a difficult choice. They can absorb the extra cost and reduce their profits, or they can increase the price of their products. Most companies choose the second option. Slowly, the higher energy costs start appearing in everyday products. Food becomes more expensive to transport. Building materials cost more to produce. Electronics become more expensive to manufacture and ship. This is how a rise in oil prices spreads across the entire economy. A single increase in energy costs can quietly push prices higher in many different industries at the same time. And by the time consumers notice it, the change has already moved through the entire system. The domino effect across the economy. Once oil prices start rising, the effects spread quickly through the entire economy. This is where the real chain reaction begins. Fuel is not just used for cars. It powers trucks that transport food, ships that carry products across oceans, and airplanes that move goods around the world. When fuel becomes more expensive, the cost of transportation immediately increases. Shipping companies start paying more to move containers. Truck drivers pay more for diesel. Airlines pay more for jet fuel. All of these businesses now face higher operating costs, but transportation is only the beginning. Factories that produce everyday goods also depend on energy. Machines require electricity. Raw materials must be transported. Workers and supplies must move from one place to another. When energy becomes expensive, the cost of producing goods also increases. Soon, businesses face a difficult choice. Either they accept lower profits or they increase the price of their products. Most businesses choose to raise prices. This is when the impact finally reaches ordinary people. Groceries become more expensive. Online orders cost more to ship. Building materials rise in price. Even the cost of basic services begins to climb. What started as a conflict far away has now triggered a chain reaction across industries. One price increase leads to another, and another. Like a line of falling dominoes, the economic impact spreads until it touches nearly everything people buy. Countries that feel the pain the most when oil prices rise because of conflict. Not every country feels the impact in the same way. Some countries produce their own oil, so they are less affected by global price changes. But many countries depend heavily on importing oil from other regions. These countries must buy energy from the global market, often at whatever price the market demands. When oil becomes expensive, these countries face serious pressure. Governments suddenly have to spend more money just to import fuel. Transportation costs rise. Electricity production becomes more expensive. Industries that rely on energy begin to struggle with higher operating costs. For developing countries, the situation can become even more difficult. Higher fuel prices mean higher transportation costs for food and goods. Farmers pay more to run tractors and machinery. Delivery trucks cost more to operate. Businesses increase their prices to cover their rising expenses. Soon, everyday items start becoming more expensive. Food prices rise. Public transportation fares increase. Electricity bills grow higher. Families begin to feel the pressure on their daily budgets. In many places, wages do not increase as quickly as prices. This means people can afford less than before, even though they are working just as hard. So while the conflict may be happening far away, the economic impact slowly reaches people in different parts of the world. And for countries that depend heavily on imported energy, the effects can be especially painful. The human impact when we talk about inflation and rising prices, it often sounds like an economic concept. Numbers on charts, reports from financial experts, headlines about markets and global trade. But behind those numbers are real people. When prices begin to rise, families feel the pressure first. A trip to the grocery store becomes more expensive than it was just a few weeks ago. Fuel costs more, which means commuting to work becomes harder on the monthly budget. For many households, even a small increase in prices can make a big difference. Families start cutting back on spending. Some delay important purchases. Others struggle to keep up with bills that seem to grow every month. Small businesses also feel the impact. When transportation costs increase and suppliers raise their prices, businesses are forced to make difficult decisions. Some raise prices, others reduce staff or slow down production. The pressure spreads across the economy, and while the conflict may be happening far away, the financial strain begins to appear in everyday life. People begin to feel that something is changing, even if they cannot always see the exact cause. This is the part of global conflict that many people do not immediately notice. Wars affect more than just the countries involved. They can quietly change the cost of living for millions of people around the world. In the end, the true impact of rising prices is not measured only in economic reports. It is felt in the bigger lesson. When we look at a war on the news, it often feels like something far away. We see maps, military updates, and political statements. It can feel like a story happening somewhere else, to someone else. But the modern world does not work like that anymore. Today, countries are deeply connected through trade, energy, technology, and transportation. Goods travel across oceans. Oil moves through narrow sea routes. Factories depend on materials that may come from other continents. Because of this connection, a crisis in one region can quickly affect the entire world. A war between Iran and Israel is not only a political or military conflict, it can also become an economic shock. If energy supply becomes uncertain, oil prices rise. When oil prices rise, transportation becomes expensive. When transportation becomes expensive, the cost of moving goods increases. And when businesses face higher costs, those costs eventually reach ordinary people. This is the reality of a globalized world. Distance does not protect economies the way it once did. A conflict thousands of miles away can slowly influence the price of fuel, food, and everyday products. In the end, the biggest lesson is simple. In an interconnected world, stability in one region helps protect everyone. But when that stability is shaken, the effects can travel far beyond the battlefield. The invisible battlefield. When most people think about war, they imagine soldiers, weapons, and battles happening on the front lines. They think about cities, borders, and military power. But in today's world, war does not only affect the places where the fighting happens. There is another battlefield that many people do not see. It is the global economy. When conflicts grow in important regions, they disturb the systems that connect the entire world. Energy supply becomes uncertain. Trade routes become risky. Markets react with fear and caution. And slowly the consequences travel across the planet. Fuel becomes more expensive. Transportation costs rise. Businesses increase prices to survive higher expenses. Eventually, those changes appear in the most ordinary places. At the gas station, at the grocery store, on electricity bills, on the price tag of everyday products. A war happening far away can quietly shape the cost of living for millions of people who are nowhere near the battlefield. This is the reality of our connected world. Today, distance does not protect economies from conflict. One region's instability can ripple through global markets and affect people everywhere. So when we hear about tensions rising between countries, it is not just a geopolitical story. It is also a reminder that the stability of the world economy depends on peace, cooperation, and secure global trade. Because sometimes, the most powerful battlefield is not where the war is fought. It is the economic system that connects us all.